So hey friend, as you consider how to build your life strategically, brick by brick, I have some amazing learnings from one of the most crazy seasons of my life, where I was balancing two bio kids, two foster kids, an international exchange student from Japan. It was peak COVID in April 2022. I just started a new job working for Johnson & Johnson as a systems engineer in surgical robotics. And on top of all of that, I decided that I was going to build a paver patio, which was a massive undertaking, and I'll drop a picture over here somewhere. But hey, pretentious engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but I'm currently in the Honda Odyssey. My daughter is in speech therapy. I'm parenting Akio, and I have a ton of notes, and I'm busy. So let's run into this module that I'm calling Stones, and I hope it's a big brain idea to get you moving forward. And also, I know you're smart, so you know all the things to do to help the algorithm find this lovely video, between like commenting and liking or checking the link in bio if you're looking for a cool community. But let's jump into it. He's super fussy today, by the way, so we'll see if this even works. So the first lesson from this season of life trying to build a giant paver patio is this idea of plan or execute, like which one's better? And the answer is yes. Which, as an engineer, I love when life is perfectly prescribed and planned and mapped out. Like I owned huge lists of requirements that I cascaded in perfect order, but then you go and launch a product and things get messy. Like nothing ever goes perfectly as planned. That's why we have probability analysis. We're looking for where things can fail, what we can't expect. And the fastest way to get learnings on that is to quickly bring things together, test it, and see if it works. So for me, whenever I'm jumping into a project or trying to build the life I desire, as much as I want to have it all mapped out clearly on paper, sometimes you just have to do the doing. And as you do the doing, it will provide clarity on what stone to lay next. So as I was building this patio, like I had this crazy vision of, we're going to do this zero exit from the house. So it's going to be raised where there used to be a deck. We had a huge amount of water that was coming into the house because it'd go under the deck. The foundation had cracks in it. We had to repair the whole foundation. We demoed the deck. We had this mud pit with all these kids, which wasn't safe. And I was like, well, we don't want to have this huge step down onto a patio that then's going to flood when all the water comes down. So we built this retaining wall. And every step that we went through kind of illuminated what the next step was. If I tried to learn how to do the whole thing online from the start, it would have never come together. So first I had to figure out, like, how do I excavate everything from the space? How do I lay down gravel? How do I build a retaining wall that will hold the gravel? Then how do I start tamping down all the sand? Like, I moved 50 tons of rock by wheelbarrow, one wheelbarrow at a time. And a lot of times we want to be able to know exactly where every wheelbarrow will go, but it's like emergent, stone by stone. So that's the first thing, is you're trying to figure out how to progress in your career, how to move forward in your entrepreneurial ventures, become a little bit more open-handed and not so tied to exactly what the plan needs to be before you get into execution, and then iterate quickly. Let's see what I got next on here. Patience and persistence. This is the idea of the stone unlaid, which is incredibly difficult. Working in R&D, there's a constant pressure to keep moving forward aggressively fast. It's a competitive landscape. Everything's about accelerating and pushing, which is good. But as we try to build the lives we desire, where we want to be integrated as parents and fruitful in our careers or entrepreneurial ventures, the idea of contentment is incredibly important. There would be moments where I would have to pause the patio project because I was on a conference call about surgical robotics, listening to all these requirement cascades, and I'd have to pause, look at my notepad for a minute, and share some thoughts on the robotics controls work stream, and then keep listening while I'm still like shoveling gravel and parenting kids in the backyard. There'd be moments where kids were throwing sand at each other, so I'm not going to be laying stones. There'd be moments where the sun would drop, and that would be my trigger of like, shoot, I guess I need to feed everybody. So then I'd have to stop the project. And when you find this level of contentment with what you don't accomplish, the patio's not built in one day or 1 week. It took me 14 weeks in parallel to thriving in my career and taking care of all these kids and all the craziness of COVID. When you find that contentment, it actually allows you to be more persistent because you don't get burned out. Burnout is just doing something for too long and not enjoying it and then stopping and then getting in your head and not starting. Whereas if you have this contentment, it leads to greater patience and then the ability to actually lock in and be persistent and see a long-term project all the way to completion or fulfillment, which is cool. All right, number 3. Oh, this one's so good. So good. I learned this in grad school. Retrospective sense making. Oh my goodness. What? How'd you turn that on? We're gonna lose our monetization. No. Don't figure out how to turn it back. How did you even do that? Oh my God. 1 second. Everything's turning on. Turn it off. Smart baby. All right, so retrospective sense making is this idea at looking back at the stones we've laid in order to make sense of the stones we're currently laying or what we're building towards next. So for instance, if I was like recently, I just submitted a $100,000 bid for a new sales strategy to reach the medtech market in Chicago on behalf of an Epic consultant. We're still in negotiations. It's awesome. It's exciting. But I have imposter syndrome. I struggle with doubt and fear if I can charge this amount, like if I'm bringing value to these spaces. And retrospective sense making would give me the confidence to go through all the moments that have built up in my life towards this point and kind of replay them. So being like, when I was in high school, I ran a red light and totaled my 1994 Honda Accord and smashed into this beautiful Audi. And that became like my engineering origin story, where I learned how to restore that car from zero. Like a friend handed me a welder and said, "Good luck." Hi, grumpy bud. He's like, he choked earlier today on a chip. He's just had a rough ride today. But I can remember like tearing apart the metal and approaching it like a Lego set and just building it back up piece by piece, and the restorative nature I have. Like I can go into any system and figure it out and build something better. And that's like a huge foundational aspect of me that came from 15 years ago. And I can remember the labels I gave myself of not being technical when I was a co-op at J&J and just comparing myself to all these other engineers and thinking I can't ever create something cool like that. But then I still landed a job as a full-time design engineer, worked my way into surgical robotics where I was the 16th engineer in that group. I owned requirements, cascades, and risk across a portfolio of instruments. I shaped design. I got patents. Like, I can make things. Like, I would tell that to myself as I was preparing for this bid. And the third piece is just, I'm checking my notes. Yeah, okay. The third piece is that after 8 years of doing that, that opened a huge door for me to direct front-end innovation from Japan. I traveled the region, connected with surgeons, embedded myself in the sales and marketing team in Japan to really understand how they understand the needs of the market and then how they're responsive to that and directing R&D activities on their behalf. Like I could tell myself I was able to go from R&D into a marketing sales hybrid role and thrive at it and see how J&J does it great. And then I could even go farther and be like, as an entrepreneur for the last year, I've built this incredible community on Skool that helps folks with big brains learn how to build the lives they desire, living where they want, loving what they do, being paid well for it. I've attracted 140 folks across the left brain people, which are like your engineers and global leaders. The right brain folks are the creatives and the community leaders, and the whole brains are the parents and the entrepreneurs. I've brought them all into this space. I'm providing them an amazing assessment where they can baseline their origin, where they're going next, why they want this change, what they're afraid of, and have the accountability to do it. And 5 of them have ascended into my paid community. Like, I know how to build a business. I could tell myself that. So all that retrospective sense making allows me to pitch high and have confidence that I either have the capabilities right now to do that crazy job, or I can trust my ability to develop the capabilities in real time in order to thrive in the role. So you got to look at the stones you've laid, each of those key moments, totaling the car, becoming a design engineer in surgical robotics, becoming a global leader in Japan, becoming an entrepreneur online. All of those are stones that I laid with sweat and toil for years. And when you hold on to that, it gives you a confidence that you have a foundation to step up from as you move into your next venture. So hopefully those are 3 incredible lessons on stones inspired by the most beautiful patio I ever made. And maybe this is a secret 4th lesson before we get into praxis, which is like what you can apply. I worked so hard on that patio. I learned so much through that project. And literally as soon as I finished it, after about 14 weeks of all in work, J&J presented me an offer to move to Japan, and I sold that house. And it's one of these things where if you could be more open-handed with your life and there for the experience of the learning and the doing and the iterations, you can also learn how to let go of it to then grab hold of what's next. Like, I gave that patio away to somebody. I mean, they paid for it. They paid a decent amount for it, but I paid for it. I know every single wheelbarrow of stone and where it was laid, right? So as you're continuing to build, maybe this is like a secret encouragement you needed. Sometimes what we work towards evaporates or shifts or moves. Trust that you got the learning you need. Someday I will have the privilege of moving more stone with a wheelbarrow, whether it's a home I build in Chicago or a home I build in Japan or something completely unexpected, and continue to iterate stone by stone, brick by brick, and to remember where you came from and where you're going next. Okay, so for praxis, sorry, that was like a little deep insight that just kind of came to me. That was cool. 3 steps. I'm looking at my sheet. I should be looking at you. Gosh, it's so chunky today. The first of which, celebrate reflection. Like, I want you to not be so fixated on what's ahead of you, what's not working in your career, what you're building towards. Like, that'll happen. But take pause to really reflect on the earliest stone you can remember. For me, it was in high school, hitting this car, my life feeling ruined, and learning how to restore and rebuild something and ultimately build a life. So find a moment of reflection. The second piece, though, which I think is equally important, is how you reflect. To look back with a sense of delight and joy. Well, bosses, I've had crappy bosses, right? So we have to have like an internal locus of control, a strong self-driving nature, and that means we have to find moments of self-celebration on what we did. Like, holy crap, that was hard, and we didn't know what we were doing, and we figured it out. So that's part of that retrospective sense making. And the third piece is to trust your capabilities today and your ability to build new capabilities to solve problems in the future. I'm incredibly motivated by fear of failure. We had an amazing guest speaker in my paid community, Shulin from Johnson & Johnson. He talked about how a lot of his rise in his career over the first decade was driven by fear of failure. It's a great motivator, but an even greater motivator, in my opinion, that gets you out of the fight or flight mode as an entrepreneur or as someone who crafted a career building a life, is just a deep sense of confidence and trust in where you're going. I would prefer to be driven by aspiration than fear, but sometimes it takes years of being driven by fear to figure out there's a different way, a better way. So I appreciate you, friends. You can sip on that. Hopefully it's encouraging. And if you have a big brain, come hang out in the club. It's free. There's a link down there. And, do the like, the share, all the other cool stuff if you like the channel, because otherwise the algorithm won't think this is a good video. And then it'll get shown to like 3 people and I'll never be successful. Just kidding. That's just all the wanderings thoughts. All right. See you on the next one. Keep changing the world.